Hello and welcome to the Good Friday episode of Low-Code Campfire for March 2024. This is episode number 140. We think we'll probably be talking about our version 1.26, but we'll also be talking about whatever it is that you want to talk about today. So glad you're joined with us. This is an event we do every Friday, the same hour, and it's just an opportunity to get together and talk about what you're doing with Plant an App and any challenges you're experiencing. It's open to everyone at all levels, and we often see problems solved here within this hour, so it's certainly good for you to join us. We record all these and put them out on YouTube, youtube.com/PlantAnApp, so do subscribe to that. We run this agenda week by week. We stop and say hello. It's meeting format, so everyone gets a chance to talk if they want to. And we go around the campfire is our next event. We do first call and topics that were submitted in advance. And then we'll talk about contributions to the campfire website or community or pick from any of these other topics. After an hour or so, we'll go into Afterglow for a few minutes where we turn off the recording and just stop and enjoy each other's company for a few minutes. So do engage with us. Jump in. You can show and tell. You can use the chat window. You can just. And we've gone to raising our hands. We're so polite, but yeah, do engage with us. If you have any noise going on behind you, we ask you to mute. Other than that, very few rules to the game. You can submit topics, questions in advance using this QR code or links that are in the email that we send to you announcing this. Also, if you have my super secret email address, you can send a question or a topic there as well. Normally, we're joined by our technical success manager, Patrick Anderson, but he is out doing a little R&R, and we will be glad to have him back next week. So with that, good morning, all you who are in the United States. Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I see we have a cast of regulars, so nobody has to introduce themselves. So we'll jump right to first call. Anybody have something we want to get into? Let's start with an easy one. Can you hear me okay today?
Sound great?
Yes.
So far, so good.
Don't be shy. Nobody came with anything? I, of course, have lots of topics, but I want to get to you first.
Well, I'll just say thank you because I just recently helped an association convert to the Plant an App, and we just had our conference and just kind of hung out with staff and asked how it went, and it was the smoothest one because we could actually, I built the shopping cart and I built the registration form exactly to what they wanted. And it was really cool. I also kind of visited with staff and what their needs were. And it's really nice to be able to say, yes, I can do that and I can do it easily. So I just want to say thank you because I wish I had this like 15 years ago.
Yes, I have kind of a similar story from this week. I was about to go speak with somebody about a system, and I thought, oh, I could add this feature or two before the meeting, and almost as fast as you can think about it, you can get things added. So that extreme flexibility is nice. But I'm glad to hear testimony that it helped in a particular circumstance.
I'm curious on what Jen just said about a shopping cart. You created a shopping cart with Plan an App?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I did it with the association where my real job is, I guess. And so I just kind of made it a lot simpler for them. But yeah, we tie into Stripe, but the all the invoicing and the orders and tied to the customers, and we have a store, we have training, we have conference, so there's lots of different things they might want in the shopping cart, and it's definitely pretty particular. So it's not just like a cookie cutter was not going to fit.
Very cool.
Absolutely nice. All right, so I'm going to try and move on to conversation starters. Here's one, and this is for anybody that's participating in beta test. This would be this is something that's on the list of beta test for our new version 126. So thought I'd cover it, show you how easy it is, and kind of explain what it's doing. So within our Campfire website, this contribution number 77, um, at the end of the day, this was designed to be a health check to see whether all the upgrades and things have installed correctly, both before you begin an upgrade and after. It's not for it's particularly of interest in our beta testers. It's not something we're going to ask everyone to do, but if you were inclined to do it, we'd love to see the results of it. And then we'll also use this if people are having particular issues to explore what's going on their system. It saves us from having to get out and go onto their system. But aside from that, this just is a workflow that demonstrates using PowerShell, Razor, and JavaScript all in one in a very simple thing, in a very quick way to get information off of the system. So it serves as an example in that regard. So what is it? This contribution, when you go to the page, it looks something like this, and a little bit of explanation here, but it's got one button, the get results. And so what we're producing, two outputs. One is a list of all the different version text files that are out on your system, or that we're expecting to find as part of our product, and a pass-fail indication to the left here. So anything that fails sticks out very easily, very quickly. And so just a quick scan to see whether things align as we expect. And then the second output is a JSON file. The JSON file is actually generated first, and then we generate a report from it. So what's going on is that the way that the different modules of Plant and App were implemented, we create a version text file that goes out onto your file system, and that says what version through which the migration scripts have executed. So when everything installs correctly, the information inside the version text file should align with the DLLs that are on your system. The migration script should go up through the DLLs. So, for example, we have in our forms product internally is known as action form, and there's a version text file. Inside of that, on this system, it has the content 5.26.61. And then we know that there are, and this is included as part of this workflow, we know that the matching DLLs to action form include the action form core DLL and the action form DLL. And we went out onto the file system and found that the version for this file is 5.26.61 and 5.26.61. So the fact that these all match up is a good thing. It says that all the migration scripts have successfully executed relative to the DLLs that are present on the system. And it goes on and on for each of the different DLLs. So the workflow has been exported here into this box, and we can implement it. And so this is what I would ask that you do, if you're so inclined, to grab this export and go to your system and go to workflows and import it. Just copy paste into there. And what's going to happen is it'll import the workflow on your system, and in the same way you can just examine it and run it. That's internally documented pretty well so that you can see what exactly it's doing, but you don't have to do anything more than click save and test, and when it runs, you'll get the two outputs. So I'm doing this on a different system, not the Campfire system. It asks for a JSON by not providing anything. You just use our default one. This gives us the ability to set it up with different expectations if we need to, but it's set up with the correct expectations. You just hit run, and so we get a report, and you can see now I have a couple that say that they failed, and many that are success, and the matching DLLs. So in this case, just to kind of show what's going on, if we look down into the JSON and look at Action Grid, it's upgraded through version 5.25.84, but I have some different DLLs on my system that are a little higher. This is a test system, and I've installed things prior to there even being migration script as part of our internal testing. So it makes sense that these have failed. But what we see is in some systems where unusual circumstances have happened, the migration, you'll be on version 5.25, installing 5.25, for example, and the migration scripts are stalled at version 5.20 and or some earlier version. And so the reason is something about that migration script is failing, and so once it fails, it doesn't do the other migrations. And so this just points us to exactly where the problem is, and then it would be a support issue to make sure that your migration script gets fixed, whatever the underlying issue is. So if you're inclined, I would ask that you go out to campfire.plantapp.com, grab this workflow, try it on your systems. And if you, it'd be great to know the result. Yes, these are, I tested this system, it all came out okay. If something came out with a failed, I'd appreciate a support ticket on that. We'll work to get you up to date. But we want to make sure, as part of the beta, what we're asking people to do is to run that on the system before they install the beta. So we know that we have a good system before completely upgrade all the migration scripts upgraded before we install the new version, so that we don't see any stalled installations. Just for fun, this I pointed out that this has lots of good examples in it. So this is doing an execute razor to find the root path where on the file system. It's just a simple razor that finds out where you start, where DNN is installed, and so then we can use that as the basis for other things. It does a PowerShell to go and look for all the versions that we are looking for, and compares starting at the root path. It finds the files and finds the DLLs, make sure everything is present the way that we expect it to do, and it results in an output, the JSON that we see. And then this last one is an example of a JavaScript that takes in a JSON, and the end result is the version report. So that's looking through that and doing the comparison and finding the differences. So Don, I see your hands up. Thank you for being so polite.
Yeah, I just learned that, and now I'm really exploiting it. The your demonstration here on your other system after you've imported the workflow, and it showed the results. The results were nice and neat, one line at a time. I just did exactly that as you were explaining it on a system, and all of the lines just run together. Um, there's no new line character, etc. So is there a setting somewhere that I'm missing that causes that? Because I've had that problem with others. I wanted to be able to read the results of the test, and it's very difficult when there's no new lines.
Great question. So let's see.
That was a fix that we did at some point. So likely you are on an older version. What Plantanet version do you have?
125, although I don't think there's hot fixes that are installed. There's there's probably a few. So if it was on a hotfix, that'll explain it.
Yes, it was a hotfix to use a pre-formatting kind of style here to see the new lines as well.
Got it. Okay. Thank
One
you.
more reason to upgrade.
And I see Mark ran this and he's all okay. So nice to see that we've got some health check going on.
And I'll be putting in a help ticket.
Okay, well, this is good. We'll find it and fix it. There's different things that have happened if you were, and we don't. If you were at the Low-Code Cafe on Wednesday, and if you weren't, I guess I'll re-explain, but we're adding stability to our upgrade process. One of the things that we discovered is that hits to a website in the middle of upgrading can cause things to execute out of order. So migration scripts, for example, running before the things that they rely on have been installed. If you don't hit the site, then during the upgrade, then if there are no hits to the site during the upgrade, then things happen in a predictable order. But when hits happen to the website while upgrade is happening, things can get out of order, and then that introduces issues where migration scripts don't run. There probably are other causes as well, but well, we know that there are other causes as well, but that's one of the main ones. And so we're trying to eliminate that. So later, again, as at 126, we're now blocking external hits to the website during the upgrade. So we begin to avoid and control that circumstance. But you may have encountered that or something else. So yes, please do open a ticket. It'd be great if anybody that's doing this to just include the results from the run of the workflow, both the report and the JSON, and that'll just bring us right to the problem, and then we'll figure out how we're going to handle it. Okay, so that's the script that we hope that you'll run, and that gets us on to then the next topic, which is in and around version 126. Bogdan, are we officially on for version 126 beta?
Yes, everything should be up and running. It's just sending the email communication up. And then getting some reports in, and making
good.
sure that we cover other common issues before the release.
So before I dig into that, I just see Mark has indicated that the workflow should probably be built into the upgrade process, and it's possible that it should be, although long term, we have a plan. Well, not even in the next version, we have a plan to get away from doing the version text files, but rather storing it elsewhere. So the concept of making sure that upgrades happen and don't fail, we are working to incorporate that into our next version. So whether or not this will have long-term usage is another thing. It may already be out of style once you get to 126, but until we get to 126, this is useful. So it's not something that we can build into the old versions. So that's kind of the thinking. But thanks for thinking about us. Okay, so beta test. I have a site up here that's logged in as a beta test user. I've stolen Bogdan's identity here, so I can do that. And so if you're part of the beta program, you have a beta program link. And if you go there, you get this window that shows how to get started. We'll cover that. And then the beta window, is this the correct period? This is our plan. Hold on till the end of April.
Yes, being such a major release will take more time than usual.
Yes, we've gone on for a year and in getting this one out the door, so we want to give plenty of time to test it and then we're trying to find a happy medium with our cadence, but that's a topic for another day. So if you're going to, it gives you lots of different options here for the installer. Happy to entertain questions, but if you're going to start from an empty DNN instance and you just want to install it from scratch, you can download the app builder and install it. As it's installable as a module, then you place the module on the page, and then it's going to install everything else for you. If you have access to our infrastructure, you can also beta test using our sites. So this is another possibility. And then if you want to install it on an existing instance, which is frankly, I think the area where we learn and you learn the most to make sure that your app continues to run as expected, you can mark your app as in the dev mode, and then that makes it so that when you go to the upgrade page, you can see the next version 126 and install it from our upgrade screen. So that's actually the best method in testing an existing application. So if you have a backup of a test system or a clone of a production system, that's the way to go. There's a hyperlink here showing how to set something up into dev mode if you haven't done it before, and that document refers to some older DNN versions. So I've put out this statement here that our target DNN versions 9.9.1 through 9.11.2, just to kind of clarify that. So all the things that we talked about in, or at least many of the things that we talked about in Cafe, so that APIs, for example, have configurable URLs, or API migrations work correctly, all the different features, and then the tests that are associated with those things are all available. And so if you were a user, you would test that thing and then make a report that it either, oh, this is, let's see.
That was the date. You just, I think you need to click the button to add the new report.
Oh, add my result. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you do a test, you would hit add my result. You get a pop-up window that talks about the automatically pre-filled with all the tests, and then you report it works as expected, or if not, then what went wrong and what DNN version you were running and things like that. And so those reports go directly to our product/development team, and they get to work on them. Yep, Matt, if you would open a ticket on that. Thanks for trying that out. Okay, so questions about, is anybody here who wants to participate in the beta and they're not sure, or they are not currently on the beta program? Want to be, let me know. We'll make sure you get added. Questions about the beta and the things that you saw on Wednesday. Or if you didn't, I encourage you to go back and take a look. There were features in there that I didn't know we were working on. I was glad to see Bogdan demonstrate them. Mark, thank you. You always participate. Don, have you, if you go to community.plananapp.com, do you have the beta program link or not?
I'll look 1 second.
Okay, if you don't, I'll be happy to go find you and add you in.
Well, while Don's searching, if we make it through the upgrade on a backup of the site, are we safe to move it forward into a production site so we can get experience with that and stuff, or you think it's not quite ready yet?
So we would never recommend installing a beta on production, except for a clone of production, because others might find things. If you have a clone that you can test on, then
Yeah, that's what I meant with,
yeah.
if I clone it and when it's working fine, or we make it through, just that, yeah, okay.
I mean, the thing is, we'll take reports, we'll fix things that you find, but I just don't want you to be in a situation where, I mean, if you can't go backwards and you find something major, that's a problem that we can't, we can't undo. So that's the only caution. It's, I guess, use at your own risk. Right? We're you could still submit a support ticket and we'll still try and fix it, but let's see. Yeah. Okay. So, Don, we'll take care of you in beta afterwards. Takes me a minute to find the right screens and get it to happen, but I'll let you know by email once it happens and you can confirm that you have access.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good. Anything about the features that that we demonstrated? All right. Well, so anyway, participate.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
don't remember them one after another, but I do remember being quite impressed and looking forward to some of those features, if not all of them.
The one that I didn't know we were. Let's see if I can. This is not a 126 system. Let me find one. Um, One of the ones that I was most impressed with was the new gateway that we have in the new view. So we've always had this exclusive gateway, and now we have the parallel gateway. So this lets you define two or more things to happen, and they're happening at the same time, and then they join together at the end. If you didn't see it, Bogdan did a great demonstration of it. It's worth going back and looking at. But if you have some interaction that's you have to, if you can do two things at the same time, or three things at the same time, especially if you're talking about interacting with an API maybe that's slower, or some remote system that it might take a while for an answer to come back, and you being able to do other things while you're waiting for that answer to happen, and then coming back together and still being able to work with that. That seems like a very useful feature for some, certainly a performance improvement. And being able, those things, and you can probably help me out. These things run on separate threads, so we're like making that very complex thing very easy to do, right?
Very quick question. All of that is the demonstration that you're talking about is all in the campfire from Wednesday?
Low-Code Cafe from Wednesday, yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Low-Code from Cafe from Wednesday. Yes. Okay, great. And is it explained like the example you just gave of calling out to another system, and then you go and do some other work while you wait? When you
Absolutely.
put those things
It
together.
illustrates that you can do multiple things at the same time, and how things come together at the end.
And then specifically, the way I always think of it is that I don't have to worry about checking the progress of something because it never leaves the action until it's done. So the next thing that happens is going to happen when it's supposed to happen after I've received the information from the remote site, for instance. So if I so the rejoining handles that. So if I do several things internally while I'm waiting for something to return, coming back, uh, I need to put the weight in there.
So the joining, let me see if I can illustrate this just kind of at a high level. It's something, this, I got ugly lines here, but it's something like this, right? So you're doing a split that is a parallel gateway, and this thing is happening at the same time as this thing, and then you come back together again as as an end. So this is saying this and this happens at the same time, and anything happening after that, if we add something here just so that we can illustrate that, in order for it to get to this point, both of these things had to finish. Right, so the workflow continues to run. It doesn't. It's not like the user. If the user was waiting on this workflow, if you're calling on this workflow from a form, for example, it's not that the user can go on and do other things, but rather that these two things are happening at the same time, and then when you hit end, the that's when the user, if you're if you're calling this workflow from a form, but not a form, the form returns when all of this has completed. Am I making any sense to you?
The wait action is confusing me because I heard two different things. I heard that
This could be this could be any kind of action.
yes,
Wait is not really a useful thing. So let's say that we did a SQL query. We'll unconfuse that. So let's take this out altogether. So if you had a long-running SQL query and a long-running call to a server somewhere else, and those were not dependent on each other, they could both happen at the same time. You could have 3 or more splits down here, as many splits as you want, where things are happening all on different tracks at the same time.
that is much clearer. Yes, thanks. The merge is what's doing the wait until all parallel processes are completed.
Yes.
Got it. Great.
If you have something that you want to kick off, different topic, queuing. If you have something that you want the user to kick off and I mean, so they initiate it and then you want to release the user to go away and do something else. That's something that's a different topic where you might want to implement some kind of a queue to handle doing the thing for the user, and then now you've got to let them know. But if they're going to sit and wait for all of this to be done, this is a mechanism where you can do many things at once.
Okay, great. Thank you. Cool.
In a, I mean, I hope this doesn't belabor it. One of the cases has to, for example, that we might use something like this for is in an AI scenario where you're calling a GPT or something like that to answer a question. And in our case, one of the things that we might do is we might call an AI to get a title for the conversation we're having. Separately, we might want to call an AI to actually determine the answer to what we want to what we're trying to do. So you've got two different calls. Those two calls could happen at the same time and not influence the not change the result. They could, if they happened one after the other, which is our original program design. It just takes the time from A plus the time for B to get done. If you can call a service with A and B at the same time, then because they're running in parallel, it's gonna take the time of the longest item, not the time of all items added together.
That looks very useful, Dale. Yeah, that's a
Um,
great thing.
Yeah, and I mean, in the right case, having it available to you is going to be very cool. We also talked about this new cache button, cache option for the read all, and so that's one worth digging into. That's a performance thing. So things that are where you're reading all of something for a particular purpose, and being able to cache the results might be a significant performance improvement. Again, watch the video because there's both techniques and warnings that go along with using it, but it's defaulted to off. It default meaning it's not going to use cache. It's going to just read your items every time you ask for it. So by default, it's safe, but if you turn it on and think it through, it could be a performance improvement for you. So yeah, there were many things in there that were kind of cool.
Out of curiosity, how many people in this group use the API endpoint module standalone separate from app builder? Because that will be a big breaking change. Not a breaking change, we did a lot of work to migrate the APIs, but it will be sensitive to test.
So just
I I have multiple API modules in one of my instances. So that
so that because we're moving away from implementing APIs through modules, but just implementing them as a once overall for the system, what I expect you to see is that all of your APIs are now going to be under the configuration under APIs, all in one place. So that's one thing. Jim, do you call your APIs using our execute API actions at all? Or are they just external?
just external.
So you have others calling your APIs?
Right. Another plant and app instance is calling it.
Aha.
So
So then the other kind of breaking thing that you'll want to watch for is that there were always two calling sequences available before. One that was a longer one that let me say, I'm trying to, we have our sample code about how you would call something, but there was a this is the format that we're handling from now forward /API/ the name of the name of the endpoint. The alternate calling sequence, if you've used that, you'll need to make sure it's not part of your
yeah, I don't think I mean, that looks similar to what I'm calling now. I'd have to go look for sure. I know those separate modules have been in my instance for quite a while, and they're kind of problematic, so I'm happy to move away from them.
Yep. Yeah, the people in our previous version, the other thing that's kind of going to impact a few people kind of greatly is that we had this ability, the action to execute an API as an action. So you've created an API and then you're even on the same system, you're calling it within your system. And that action had a module ID embedded into it. And again, since we're moving away from module IDs, we needed to remove that capability. So the ability to execute an API through a simple action is going away. It's automatically going to be supported, kind of grandfathered, but you won't be able to do it for new things. And best practice would be to recode that as using an actual API call if you need to do it as an API, or better yet, if you're APIs have been around for a long time. Oftentimes people used APIs as a stand-in for workflows before we had workflows. So you can, in workflow, you can have inputs and do actions and have outputs. APIs kind of are that way as well. They have inputs and outputs, and so if you've used APIs because as a workflow, you might be better off flipping them to becoming a workflow instead.
That is probably my exact scenario where these have been in there so long prior to it, that they are holdovers from DNN chart and rather before Planting App. So
yep. Good. Well, we look forward to you getting into 126, and we will be anxiously waiting for the beta reports. We have, internally, we've been going through many rounds of what we call live QA, where we take lesser important systems and upgrade them, lesser customer facing systems and upgrade them. And so we'll be continuing that through this period as well. So things like the community or other sites. I think Campfire is already upgraded to 126, but we continue to upgrade and do our part to make sure they're good and solid releases. But everyone uses our product, and so I mean it's a big and complex product, as you know, and everyone uses it slightly different. So we'll be anxious to hear your experiences and try to solve any issues you might run into.
Hey Dale, check the chat for Ben's question, the last one from Ben. Did he say moving away from module IDs?
Ben's question I do not see to me in my notes.
Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like it's to me.
Yeah, so he is venting to you, but not he doesn't he's too shy.
So he actually, Ben, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
No, I was just asking because I wasn't sure if I heard correctly, because I'm a little distracted here. You said earlier that you're moving away from module IDs. Was that a
in
misspeak?
in certain instances, right? We previously, for example, the previous example of this was Sharp Scheduler. Used to be a separate module that you installed, and so you could have multiple Sharp Scheduler modules. Now we just have one automation module that's under configuration. In the same way, you could have multiple DNN API endpoint modules installed, but we're moving away from that to just having API support. So it's not module based;
Gotcha.
it's system level. But we're not moving away, for example, from when you distribute when you put a form on a page, it has a module ID. We're not moving away from that. That's a DNN core must have for now. I don't know what the future 10 years down the line looks like, but there's no plans to move away from that I have information about. But features of Planting App, we are building a core into the product rather than implementing them as modules into our product. I hope that helps. Did that alleviate the panic that you were feeling?
Yes, thank you very
Good. Okay. What else do we have? Oh, I had a support issue come up. Nobody on this call, but it doesn't really matter. Just a reminder. Sometimes you decide you want to clone a system, and I had a client that took a shortcut, which is I have a clone of a system that's on one version of the product. I don't really feel like completely cloning the file system over again, so I just copied the file system from my production system over on top of my clone system, and then we ran into a bunch of things that didn't work. So the the safest thing to do when you're cloning a system is to copy the entire file system and the entire database onto a fresh empty area. If that is I mean, of course, that the larger that your production site is, the more files it has, the harder that is, and you're looking for shortcuts. But it's important to realize that part of an upgrade from one version to another is to remove files as well as to add new things into the file system. So some DLLs get deleted and other DLLs get replaced. Same thing with other configuration files. So if you shortcut the process, you might have a system that works in odd ways because I mean, it might blow up, but it might just work in odd ways. And that's what we ran into, that a bad clone was causing odd symptoms. And until you get a good clone, it's kind of a hair pulling out thing. So just remembering to be careful when you're trying to short circuit the process. Anyone ever experienced this or have techniques for avoiding it? I think we've talked this in the past.
No, I've always done the entire thing, just like you said.
Yep. I think we've, in a scenario where you're testing an upgrade. So for example, you've got a system, you do a backup of it, you try an upgrade, and it's like a complete test system. You can use neat tools to do a differential kind of restore where you say, where you can reset your file system back to the way it was before the upgrade without having to actually copy all the files. But you need tools to do it. You need to do it very carefully or be surgical in which folders to restore. There are shortcuts, but if you haven't prepared properly or don't know them, the better answer is just to do a full copy. Okay, I don't want to belabor that. Mark, you had this thing that I could show if you want me to, or you could talk about if you want to, or I have it available as something that doesn't reveal the URL and client. If you want me to pull it up, it's your call.
Which thing might that be? Do you know about double click?
The double click.
Yeah. Go ahead and talk about it. I'll chime in.
Okay. So Mark was doing a registration form, and he's always helpful to me when he hears me struggling for topics on the Low-Code Campfire. So he said, well, you could talk about this if you want. He did a thing where in this entry form, some fields, you might have a registration for students, for example, and some fields, each student, the information is going to repeat. So he just made a visual indication that a blue bar means that you have this feature double click to copy. And so it automatically gets the same thing. So if you're enrolling two students from some other local school district, that the answer is going to very likely going to be the same as your last one. So being able to double click and I'm double clicking here. We'll see. The site might have gone to sleep, or see if I've got this. Anyway, the double click is doing something behind the scenes, and we haven't. Yeah, so there maybe there was no local school district, and so it didn't fill in. But I double clicked on that one, and I got grant. If I do zip code, and I get a zip code, and in the same way. So just this nice technique of just being able to double click and getting the answer back. So anything you'd like to share about the code behind?
Well, that's a good question. I am curious to see how you implemented that. I don't think I shared too much on about how I implemented it. And I went through several iterations, several different techniques until I landed on one. So how did you implement going and getting a previous value from the previous submission?
No. I'm just
I'll share too. Okay.
I didn't implement it. I'm just showing off your work.
Okay. Oh, is that my form? It looks different when it's tall.
Yeah. I narrowed it down to
Okay.
maintain privacy, but
Okay, well then I would answer your question by saying I did land on a technique, and I think that the smart people in this room might offer some alternatives which would benefit us all to hear it, including myself. So what I did for this is I generated a GUID when the form was submitted the first time. So there's a lot of fields on this form. There's over 100 fields, and a lot of them get repeated, and that is the way the client wanted it because their downstream processes, they want the entire collection of data, and they don't want to have all these tables on their website. So they just want people to fill it in twice or three times or four times if you have four kids. But I had pity on the people who are filling out the form, so I wanted to make it refillable a lot easier than making people type it in. So the way I do it is I run some JavaScript on form open that looks for a GUID up in the query string. It's a ref num query string parameter, and it just has the GUID of the previous submission. And we get it there by giving when they first submit the first form, a link pops up on the screen saying, hey, if you're going to be doing a second child, click here and we'll fill in some fields for you. So when they click on the link, they come back to the form. The query string has a ref num, it's a GUID. This is aware that the GUID is there, paints those fields blue on the ones that are appropriate that could be copied from the previous submission. JavaScript assigns a double click event handler listener that to all the ones that have the blue border on the right. And so when someone double clicks on a blue bordered field, it kicks into gear. It runs a token that is a SQL token, which looks up the ref num of the previous submission, looks up the field that is being asked for, and it gets the result, brings it back, and then some JavaScript takes the value that was returned by the token and plops it into the correct field. All that to make it double-click easy to fill in from the previous submission. I did try putting this together with an API instead of a token as far as the feature of going and getting the previous value. And I didn't want to run the API from an action because that's going away. And I didn't want to put the code of the API call in the bind on every one of these fields. I wanted it to be dynamic or easier for me to create the form. So I wound up using the token. So questions or alternative approaches?
So I accomplished that with a series of check boxes that I label remember, and I'm putting things into the tokens when I do a save, I have a set of tokens for each of the fields I want to remember. And then when I initialize the form, I bring those fields in. But I like the double click option there that you described. That's pretty cool.
Are you then, in essence, storing data values in a constant token for use later?
Yes.
Okay.
For the tokens defined on the form. So.
Right, right. So this process, it not different from the way you did it, Jim. I was just going to brag about this process. There's so many fields on this form, and since this is recording data about families, and I have heard reports back from the client saying that there are a lot of mixed families out there with children from previous marriages or even kids that they took in that weren't even their own. So they've got different names, they've got different background information. And so I really needed to make this optional to fill in data from the previous.
I,
Each field needed to be able to be brought in or not brought in from the previous.
I think it's an interesting user interface to say to make it easy for them, but they have to do it field by field. So I mean, I know I have a field filler, and sometimes it fills in things that did I really want it to fill that in? Right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
they have to think about it. They have to see it versus just, oh, it did a bunch of stuff. Oh, now I've made a mistake or didn't catch my mistake. Excuse me. Ben has his hand up.
I just had a quick question, Mark, because I'm, you know, thinking of an alternate
Good.
method of doing this. But when the people are filling in this form, let's say, for example, and they have more than one person that they're filling it in for, are they doing it at the same exact time? Like they fill in one and then they fill in the second right after and the third. It's not that they're coming back days later.
They could do either or right away or later.
So if they come back later, that means they have an account that they have to log into.
No, all they need is the URL that brings them back to this registration form. The URL is going to have a GUID attached to it. The GUID looks up the previous entries or is a reference to the previous entries.
Okay.
So they just have to have the URL with the GUID, which I sent to them in an email.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a very interesting method. I've never seen anything quite like that, so it's cool. It's unique. Um, Me personally, just like while I like the idea because I could see where something like this can be implemented in other ways. Um, just for me on a big form like this, and I just know my users. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of users are like this, but for my users, they're extremely lazy, and this would drive them batty only because it's constant double clicking on every individual field. So typically what I would do is I would have like if they're doing it at the same exact time, like save and add another, and then basically all of the possible fields that could be the same, I just immediately duplicate over and then just keep the unique fields blank. So like for example, the name, the age, the birth date would be blank, but the address, location, district, things like that would be the same. And then they just fill in the blanks. And if there is something different, they can always change it, but I would pre-fill it for them. Or a situation where they could do some sort of a lookup based off of their previous entry and say, copy the data from this previous record.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I even started with that exact process because I've done that before as well. This one, I was just told in advance that there's a lot of different values. You know, we might think, oh, one child's going to have the same school district as another from the previous school, but it actually doesn't turn out to be true in a large percentage of cases. So yeah, that's a good technique. For most cases, I would probably say this time I wanted it to be each one to be fillable or not, and without it being imposed, you know,
Yeah.
all as one big block of entries.
Just
Now,
sticking with you.
sorry.
Oh, no, go, you're in. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just had one question. In your situation, let's say you had three entries. You already did two and you're working on a third. And let's say the first entry had one school district or one address, whatever it is. The second entry that you put in, it was different. And then you're going for the third and you double click. It's always going to take the last one that was done, correct?
That is a good question, Ben. The answer is not quite, but it wouldn't be a straightforward understanding on the part of the parents to know which one they're going to get. Because is each time they fill out the form, they're going to get a confirmation message on screen. That's going to have a URL, and it's going to have the latest, the GUID that references the latest submission. However, they're also getting an email. The email is going to have the same link, and if they get two forms submitted, they'll have two emails. Each one of them will have a different GUID. So which one they click on is kind of up to them. I don't think that it's clear at all to them which one they
Right.
would want
So
to be
that
clicking on.
whichever GUID whichever link
Mhm.
they clicked on with the specific GUID is the one that it's going to duplicate when they double click. So
Yeah,
it, like you said, for them, it may not be understood which one they're actually going to be cloning the data from
right.
if they don't pay attention to
Have to
like
give that
what
some
they're
thought
looking.
on how to show them that, but yeah, I'm not sure how complicated. I'm trying to make things easy, not complicated, so I have to
Yep.
think about that.
There's a, for, so maybe two closing thoughts since we're at our hour. I'm gonna do those. One is, just from a technique standpoint, it sounds like you're dynamically looking up at the point of double click to go get that piece of information. So depending, one possibility might be to load that information into a hidden uh, JSON or some kind of structure on the form so that it does it once and then your JavaScript retrieves it at the time of double click, but um, not as a server hit. So
Right, retrieves it locally.
yeah, so there might be a slightly but your user interface was driven by what the client wanted, and it makes a lot of sense. And I wanted to Jim had shared his user interface where he has a checkbox to retrieve the information from a previous one, and so rather than the blue bar methodology, it's a checkbox. So go get it from before, and so this is kind of an interesting. And it all just depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish. So with that, thanks everyone for sharing. We'll hang out here for a little while longer in Afterglow, but thanks for participating, and we will do this again next week. And the good news is then that Patrick will be back from his undisclosed location and can add his thoughts to it as well. So thank you all. Hang around for a few minutes.
Thanks, everybody.